The massive chamber stretched out in every direction, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some floated in special containers filled with their home atmosphere. Others stood on platforms designed for their particular body types. The air hummed with 1,000 different voices, all speaking at once through translation devices that made their words understandable to everyone present. Captain Jake Morrison stood perfectly still in the human section of the chamber. Next to him, Ambassador Linda Hayes kept her face calm, though her hands were clasped tightly together. Chief Engineer Peter Collins looked around at the alien beings with barely hidden anger. They had been waiting for 3 hours to hear the decision that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. High Arbiter Zelthor raised several of his crystal-like arms. The chamber fell silent. His body shimmered with different colors as he spoke, and the translation device turned his words into English that filled the human section. "We have evaluated the species known as humanity," Zelthor said. "We have studied their history, their technology, and their culture. We have reviewed their application for membership in the Galactic Council. A decision has been reached." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel only 2 years ago. Since then, they had encountered dozens of alien species and learned that the galaxy was governed by an ancient council that maintained peace and order among thousands of worlds. Earth had applied to join as equals. They had shared everything about themselves, holding nothing back. They had hoped for friendship and partnership. Arbiter Kelvan stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like dark metal. His voice came through the translator, cold and factual. "Humanity is classified as a subject species Category 7, Kelvan announced. "This classification is granted due to the following reasons. First, humans display excessive aggression in their historical records. Second, humans show dangerous levels of emotional instability. Third, human military development exceeds safe parameters for a young species. Fourth, human expansion patterns indicate territorial ambitions that require supervision." The chamber filled with sounds of approval from many of the alien species. Some made clicking noises, others pulsed with light. A few released chemical signals that the translation devices converted into words of agreement. Kelvan continued. "As a subject species, humanity will be granted limited privileges. You may engage in trade with approved partners. You may travel through designated space corridors. You may maintain defensive military forces under Council oversight. All human colonies beyond your home system require Council approval before establishment. All military vessels must carry Council tracking devices. All research into advanced weapons must be supervised by Council inspectors." Linda Hayes closed her eyes for a moment. Her diplomatic training kept her standing straight, but Jake could see the pain on her face. Peter Collins made a low sound in his throat that might have been a curse. "Furthermore," Kelvan said, "humanity will submit to regular inspections to ensure compliance with Council regulations. A Council oversight committee will be stationed in your home system. Failure to comply with these terms will result in immediate sanctions, including trade restrictions and travel bans." Zelthor raised his arms again. "This decision is final and will take effect immediately. The human delegation has 30 standard cycles to return to their homeworld and begin implementation of Council oversight. This session is concluded." The chamber erupted in conversation as different species discussed the decision. Some seemed pleased that humanity had been properly controlled. Others showed no emotion at all, as if the matter was of no importance to them. A few looked at the human delegation with what might have been pity. Jake turned to Linda and Peter. "We need to leave. Now." They walked through the massive corridors of the Council station in silence. Other species moved out of their way, some watching them with curiosity, others ignoring them completely. When they reached the docking bay where their ship waited, Jake felt like he could finally breathe again. The HFY Defender was a small vessel compared to many of the alien ships in the bay, but it was home. As they walked up the loading ramp, Communications Officer Amy Price looked up from her station. She had stayed behind with the rest of the crew during the hearing. Her hopeful expression faded when she saw their faces. "That bad?" she asked quietly. "Worse," Peter said, dropping into his seat at the engineering station. "They basically told us we're children who need babysitters." Navigation specialist Carl Bennett stopped his work and turned around. "What does that mean exactly?" Linda Hayes sat down heavily in one of the passenger seats. "It means we're not members of the council. We're subjects. We have to ask permission before we do anything. They'll put tracking devices on our ships. They'll inspect our research facilities. They'll tell us where we can and cannot go." Chief Medical Officer Helen Wright came out of the medical bay, having heard the conversation. "Can they actually enforce that?" Jake moved to the captain's chair and began the pre-launch sequence. "They have thousands of ships and weapons we don't fully understand yet. They have control of the trade routes and the jump gates that make long-distance travel possible. So yes, they can enforce it if we stay here and play by their rules." "And if we don't play by their rules?" Amy asked. Jake looked at his crew. They were good people, all of them. They had volunteered for this mission knowing it might be dangerous. They had left Earth to represent humanity to the galaxy, and now they had to return home with news that would make everyone angry. "Then we go home, and we tell Earth what happened," Jake said. "We tell them that we tried diplomacy, we tried honesty, we tried partnership, and the galaxy decided we weren't good enough. They decided we need to be controlled." "They made a mistake," Peter said quietly. "They think we're going to just accept this." Linda looked at the engineer. "What choice do we have? They have the power here." "For now," Peter replied. "But humans don't like being told they're inferior. We don't like being controlled. Our entire history is full of people fighting against exactly this kind of treatment." Jake guided the ship out of the docking bay and set course for Earth. Through the view screen, he could see the massive council station falling away behind them. It was a beautiful structure, built over thousands of years by species working together. He had hoped humanity would become part of that cooperation. Instead, they had been judged and found wanting. "Computer, log entry for the record," Jake said. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the HFY Defender. We have received the Galactic Council's decision regarding humanity's application for membership. We have been classified as a subject species with restricted rights and mandatory oversight. We are returning to Earth to deliver this decision to the government." He paused, then added something that wasn't required in an official log. "Personal note. The Council believes they can control us. They believe we'll accept second-class status because they have superior technology and numbers. They don't understand humans at all. They're about to learn a very important lesson about our species. We don't accept chains. We never have. We never will." Amy looked at her captain with a slight smile. "You think Earth is going to fight back?" "I think Earth is going to do what Earth always does when someone tries to push us down," Jake said. "We're going to push back harder. The Council just declared war on human pride. They don't know it yet, but they made the biggest mistake in their long history." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the Council station and its thousands of alien species behind. The crew sat in silence, each thinking about what came next. They were heading home with bad news. But Jake was right about one thing. Humanity had faced extinction events, world wars, and countless disasters throughout their history. They had survived everything through determination and refusal to give up. The Galactic Council had just added themselves to a very long list of challenges that humanity had overcome. They thought they had put humans in their place. They thought the matter was settled. They had no idea that they had just guaranteed themselves a problem that would reshape the entire galaxy. 3 months from now, the Council would realize their error. 6 months from now, they would regret it deeply. But right now, in this moment, They believed they had successfully managed the human question. They were wrong. They were very, very wrong. 3 months had passed since the Council made their declaration. In that time, the galaxy continued its normal business. Trade ships moved between worlds. Diplomatic meetings happened on schedule. The Council members congratulated themselves on another successful integration of a young species into the proper order. Inspector Vornax arrived at Earth with his oversight team. He was a being covered in smooth gray skin with 6 arms and multiple eyes that could see in several different light spectrums. He had performed this duty 17 times before with other subject species. The process was always the same. There would be some initial resistance, some complaints about unfairness, and then acceptance. Species learned to appreciate the stability that Council oversight provided. President Karen Foster met him at the landing site with full ceremony. Human military units stood at attention. Flags flew in the wind. The president smiled and shook Vornax's lower right hand, which the translator had informed her was the appropriate greeting gesture. "Welcome to Earth, Inspector," Karen said warmly. "We are ready to cooperate fully with the Council's requirements." Vornax was pleased. "I am glad to hear this, President Foster. Many young species have difficulty accepting their proper place. Your maturity is noted and will be reported favorably." Over the next weeks, Vornax and his team inspected everything they requested. Secretary of Defense Greg Palmer gave them access to all military bases. They counted ships and weapons. They reviewed training programs and strategic plans. Everything matched the reports that Earth had submitted. 12 military vessels, all now fitted with Council tracking devices. 4 colony worlds with development plans submitted for approval. Research facilities open for inspection. Science advisor Nicole Green showed them laboratories where human scientists worked on approved projects. Medical research, agricultural improvements, computer systems, nothing that violated Council restrictions on weapons development. The inspectors took samples and scans, and everything checked out perfectly. "Your species learns quickly," Vornax told President Foster at the end of his inspection tour. "I expected more resistance. Instead, I find complete cooperation. This reflects well on humanity." Karen smiled. "We understand that the Council has thousands of years of experience maintaining peace. We are willing to learn from that wisdom." Vornax returned to his ship satisfied. He sent his report to the Council stating that humanity was complying with all requirements. The subject species classification was being implemented successfully. There were no signs of resistance or prohibited activities. He recommended continued monitoring but saw no immediate concerns. What Vornax did not see was the construction happening in the dark spaces of the solar system. Between Mars and Jupiter, where the asteroid belt provided cover and resources, humans were building. Civilian shipyards that had been registered with the Council as mining operations were actually constructing warships. 60 vessels were taking shape in the darkness, each one designed with a single purpose. Commander Lisa Warren floated in zero gravity outside one of the construction sites. She watched as automated systems and human workers assembled another hull. The ships were beautiful in their own way. Not as elegant as Council vessels, but purposeful. Every line and angle served a function. These were not exploration ships. They were weapons. "How long until this one is operational?" she asked her second-in-command through the communication link. 2 weeks, came the reply. "We're ahead of schedule on most of them." "Turns out building ships is easier when you don't have to follow someone else's regulations." Lisa smiled inside her helmet. Every person working on these ships was a volunteer. They knew they were violating the Council's orders. They knew they could be punished if discovered. They did it anyway because they believed in something simple. Humanity should not bow to anyone. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Chief Scientist Brian Kelly worked in a research facility that the Council inspectors had never found. It was built deep under the surface, powered by geothermal energy that looked like natural heat signatures to orbital scans. Inside, 50 of humanity's best scientists worked on a problem that would determine everything. "Show me the simulation again," Brian said to his assistant. The holographic display lit up with an image of a council warship. Next to it appeared a human missile carrying a warhead that Brian's team had designed. The simulation ran. The missile approached the council ship. The ship's shields activated, the same shields that had protected council vessels for centuries. The missile struck, and the shields failed. "It works," Brian said quietly. "It actually works." His assistant nodded. "The council shields are designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles moving at certain speeds. But if you vary the frequency of the warhead detonation and hit them with multiple impact points at the same time, the shields can't adapt fast enough. They overload. How many council species know about this weakness? As far as we can tell, none. They've used the same shield technology for so long that they never considered someone might find a way around it." Brian looked at the simulation results. This was it. This was how humanity could fight back against an enemy with superior numbers and older technology. Not by matching them directly, but by finding the weaknesses they didn't know they had. In the cold dark beyond Pluto, General Marcus Webb watched human pilots train in combat maneuvers that would make council tacticians call them insane. Human fighters dove at each other at speeds that left almost no margin for error. They practiced flying through debris fields that would tear apart their ships if they made a single mistake. They trained for boarding actions against larger vessels, running simulations where they had to take control of enemy ships through close combat. "Again," Marcus ordered after watching a particularly difficult exercise. "You were too slow. In a real fight, you'd be dead." The pilot's voice came back, frustrated. "Sir, the approach angle you're asking for is crazy. One wrong move and I hit the target ship's hull at full speed." "That's right," Marcus agreed. "And if you're not willing to take that risk, then you shouldn't be out here. The Council expects us to fight like them. Carefully, safely, with minimal risk. We're going to fight like humans, fast, aggressive, and willing to do things they think are impossible." The pilot was quiet for a moment. Then, "Running the exercise again, sir." Marcus watched as the fighter came around for another attempt. This time, the approach was better. Still dangerous, but better. The pilot was learning. They all were. When the time came, humanity would have warriors who fought with a level of aggression that the galaxy hadn't seen in thousands of years. Back on Earth, in the council chambers where Ambassador Linda Hayes now sat as humanity's representative, she attended another boring session about trade regulations. She voted on minor matters. She smiled at other delegates who treated her with polite condescension. She played the role of the compliant subject perfectly. And every night she encrypted everything she had learned and sent it home through communication channels that the Council didn't know existed. Ship movements, military capabilities, political divisions within the Council. Which species supported harsh treatment of subject species, and which ones seemed uncomfortable with it. All of this information flowed back to Earth, adding to humanity's understanding of their enemy. Because that was what the Council had become the moment they declared humans inferior. They were the enemy, not through humanity's choice, but through their own arrogance. In a secret meeting room deep under the surface of Earth, President Karen Foster met with her top advisors. No recording devices, no electronic communications, just people talking about what came next. "The inspector bought it completely," Greg Palmer reported. "They think we're cooperating." "The construction continues on schedule," Lisa Warren added via secure video link. "We'll have 60 operational warships in 3 months." "Weapons development is complete," Brian Kelly said. "We can produce the new missiles in quantity now. We know how to hurt them." Karen looked at each of them. "The Council will summon me in 3 months to formally accept the subject species status in front of the entire galaxy. They want to make an example of us, show everyone that even difficult species can be controlled." "Are you going to go?" Nicole Green asked. "Oh, yes," Karen said with a cold smile. I'm going to go, and I'm going to tell them exactly what humanity thinks of their declaration. We've spent 3 months preparing. We've built weapons they don't know about. We've found weaknesses in their defenses. We've trained our people. Now it's time to show them that their biggest mistake was thinking we would just accept their judgment. Greg leaned forward. This could mean war, real war. Not just a few skirmishes, but full conflict with a galactic power that has thousands of years of experience. I know, Karen said. But what's the alternative? We spend the rest of human history as second-class citizens? We let them control where we go and what we do? We accept that we're not good enough to sit at their table as equals? No, Marcus Webb said firmly from his video link. We don't accept that. We never accept that. Karen nodded. Then we're agreed. In 3 months, humanity makes its position clear. We reject their authority. We refuse their oversight. And if they try to force us to comply, we show them that humans don't fight the way they expect. We've spent 3 months preparing for this. Now we finish it. The meeting ended. Each person returned to their duties. Across the solar system, humans continued their work. Ships were completed and crewed, weapons were manufactured and loaded, pilots trained until they could fly in their sleep. Scientists refined their designs. Soldiers practiced boarding actions and close combat. The Galactic Council believed they had solved the human problem. They believed their oversight was working. They believed humanity had accepted their place in the galactic order. They were wrong about everything, and in 3 months, they would discover just how wrong they were. Humanity had spent this time preparing not for compliance, but for defiance. The Council had given humans 3 months to think about their situation. Humans had used that time to prepare for war. The summons came exactly 6 months after the Council made their declaration. President Karen Foster was required to appear before the full Galactic Council to formally acknowledge humanity's subject species status. It was meant to be a ceremony, a public display that would be broadcast across thousands of worlds. The Council wanted everyone to see that even the unpredictable humans could be brought to heel. Karen arrived at the Council station aboard the UES Defender. Captain Jake Morrison guided the ship into the docking bay with the rest of the human delegation on board. Ambassador Linda Hayes sat quietly in her seat, reviewing her notes. Chief Engineer Peter Collins checked the communication systems one last time. Everything needed to work perfectly for what came next. 1,500 species represented, Jake said, looking at the station scan. That's more than usual. They really want a big audience for this. Let them have their audience, Karen said calmly. The more people watching, the better. The council chamber was even more packed than during the first hearing. Every section was filled with alien beings. Some floated in their atmosphere pods. Others stood on platforms. The air buzzed with anticipation. This was a moment of importance for the council, a demonstration of their power and authority. High Arbiter Zelthor opened the proceedings with a long speech about unity and order. He talked about how the council maintained peace through proper hierarchy. He spoke about the benefits of accepting one's role in the galactic community. He mentioned how humanity would prosper under council guidance. And now, Zelthor said, his crystal body pulsing with satisfied colors, President Foster of Earth will formally acknowledge the subject species classification and accept the permanent oversight framework that will guide her species into a peaceful future. Karen stood and walked to the central platform. The translation field activated, ensuring that every being in the chamber and billions watching across the galaxy would hear her words clearly. She looked around at the assembled species. Some watched with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt. A few seemed uncomfortable, as if they suspected this might not go as planned. High Arbiter Zelthor, members of the Galactic Council, representatives of the assembled species, Karen began. Her voice was clear and firm. I stand before you today to deliver Earth's official response to your declaration. Zelthor made a gesture of approval. Please proceed, President Foster. Humanity rejects the Council's declaration, Karen said simply. We do not recognize your authority to determine our status. We do not accept restrictions on our expansion. We will not comply with oversight protocols. We will not submit to monitoring of our military or our research facilities. The chamber exploded with noise. Thousands of voices shouted at once. Some species made sounds of outrage. Others showed confusion. Zelthor's crystalline form pulsed with colors indicating extreme shock. Inspector Vornax, standing near the council platform, looked like his multiple eyes might fall out of his head. Karen continued speaking over the chaos. 6 months ago, humanity approached the Galactic Council seeking partnership. We shared our history honestly. We offered cooperation. We hoped for mutual respect among equals. Instead, you judged us inferior and tried to treat us like children who needed supervision. This is outrageous, Arbiter Kelvan shouted. You cannot simply reject council authority. We have evaluated your species according to procedures established over thousands of years. Your procedures are based on the assumption that young species will accept whatever you decide, Karen replied. That assumption was incorrect. Humanity has never responded well to others claiming authority over us. Our entire history is full of people fighting against exactly what you tried to do to us. She gestured to the main view screen that dominated one wall of the chamber. The screen activated, showing images that made several species gasp. 60 warships arranged in perfect formation around Earth's moon. Weapons platforms scattered through the asteroid belt. Defense satellites orbiting Earth in patterns designed for maximum coverage. And timestamps showing that all of it had been built during the 6 months the Council believed humanity was complying. This is impossible, Inspector Vornax said, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. I inspected Earth. I verified compliance. I counted 12 ships, not 60. Linda Hayes spoke up from the human delegation section. You counted the 12 ships we wanted you to count, Inspector. You inspected the facilities we allowed you to see. You verified compliance with restrictions we never actually followed. But how? Vornax looked genuinely confused. My team was thorough. We have technology that can detect unauthorized construction. You have technology designed to detect council construction methods, Peter Collins said. We used different methods. We built in places you didn't think to look. We powered our facilities in ways that looked like natural phenomena to your scans. And we counted on your assumption that a young species wouldn't dare deceive you. Arbiter Kelvan's metallic skin darkened with anger. You lied to the Council. You violated the restrictions placed upon you. This is an act of war. No, Karen said firmly. You declared restrictions without our consent. We simply chose not to follow them. There is a difference between violating laws you agreed to and refusing to accept laws imposed on you against your will. You are one species against thousands, Zelthor said. His earlier satisfaction replaced with cold fury. Your defiance means nothing. The Council fleet will enforce compliance. Jake Morrison stepped forward. You're welcome to try, but you should know what you're facing. 60 warships crewed by people who volunteered knowing they might have to fight the entire galaxy. Weapons designed specifically to counter your shield technology. Tactics developed by studying everything we could learn about Council military doctrine. And soldiers trained to fight in ways you consider insane. You cannot threaten the Council, another arbiter shouted. We have maintained peace for 3,000 years. We will not allow one aggressive species to undermine galactic stability. We don't want to undermine anything, Karen said. We want to be part of it, as equals. We offered you cooperation and partnership from the beginning. You chose to offer us subjugation instead. That was your choice and your mistake. Linda Hayes added, The Council evaluated humanity based on your own standards. You saw aggression in our history and called it dangerous. You saw emotional responses and called it instability. You saw our military development and called it threatening, but you never asked what those things meant in context. Context? Zelthor asked coldly. Yes. Context, Linda continued. Humanity developed weapons because we lived on a world that tried to kill us constantly. We learned aggression because we had to fight for survival every single day. We became emotional because forming strong bonds with each other was the only way we survived. Everything you judged us for is the reason we're still alive as a species. Karen took control again. We spent 6 months showing you what happens when you try to control us. We built ships you didn't know about. We developed weapons you didn't think we could make. We prepared for conflict while smiling and pretending to cooperate. And we did all of this while you congratulated yourselves on successfully managing the human problem. This is unacceptable, Kelvan said. The Council cannot allow this defiance to stand. Every subject species will think they can do the same. Maybe they should, Karen replied. Maybe the problem isn't with species refusing to accept second-class status. Maybe the problem is a system that creates second-class status in the first place. The chamber fell into shocked silence. No one had ever challenged the fundamental structure of the Council so directly. For thousands of years, the hierarchy had been accepted as natural and necessary. Young species were supervised until they proved themselves worthy of full membership. That was how it had always worked. You are suggesting chaos, Zelthor said. Without proper order, the galaxy would descend into constant warfare. I'm suggesting respect, Karen said. Treat species as potential partners instead of potential problems. Offer cooperation instead of control. And maybe you'll find that species respond better to trust than they do to restrictions. Jake added one final point. The 60 ships you see on that screen are ready right now. Their crews are trained. Their weapons are loaded. Their captains have orders to defend human territory and human interests by any means necessary. If the Council tries to enforce your declaration by force, we will fight, and we will hurt you badly enough that you'll regret ever hearing about Earth. You would lose, Zelthor said with certainty. Eventually, the Council's superior numbers would overwhelm you. Probably, Karen agreed. But you would lose too. Lose ships, lose people, lose the image of invincibility you've built over 3,000 years. And at the end of it, you would still have to deal with humans who hate you and will spend the rest of our existence finding ways to make you pay for trying to enslave us. She let that sink in for a moment, then continued. Or you could accept what we've been telling you from the beginning. Humanity wants to be part of the galactic community. We want to contribute. We want to explore and learn and grow alongside other species. But we will only do it as equals. Give us full membership with all the rights and responsibilities that come with it. Treat us with the respect we're willing to give you. And we can move forward together. And if we refuse? Arbiter Kelvan asked. Then we build our own alliance, Linda said. There are species out there who aren't happy with Council control. Minor species who get ignored. Independent worlds that don't like being told what to do. We'll offer them partnership as equals. We'll share our technology and our tactics. And we'll create an alternative to Council authority. Karen nodded. Either way, humanity will not accept subject species status. The only question is whether we do it as your allies or your rivals. The choice is yours. She turned and walked back to the human delegation section. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others called for negotiation. A few suggested the Council should simply withdraw all contact with humanity and let them fail on their own. High Arbiter Zelthor struggled to restore order. When he finally managed to quiet the chaos, he spoke directly to Karen. This matter requires deliberation. The Council will consider your response and determine appropriate action. You will remain at this station until we reach a decision. No, Karen said simply. We're leaving. When you're ready to talk about real membership, contact Ambassador Hayes. Until then, humanity will continue doing what we've been doing. Living free. The human delegation left the chamber. As they walked through the corridors back to their ship, Other species moved out of their way. Some looked angry. Some looked frightened. A few looked almost impressed. The humans had done something that hadn't happened in thousands of years. They had told the Galactic Council no, and backed it up with clear capability to resist. The council chamber had never been so divided. For 3 days after President Foster's departure, the representatives argued about how to respond to humanity's defiance. Some wanted immediate military action. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few brave voices proposed actually listening to what the humans had said. High Arbiter Zelthor called the emergency session to order. His crystalline form still pulsed with colors showing agitation. We must decide on a course of action. Humanity has rejected our authority. If we do nothing, other species will think they can do the same. Arbiter Kelvan stood to speak. He looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for him. I recommended the subject species classification. I believed humans were too aggressive and needed supervision. I was wrong about how they would respond, but that doesn't change the facts. They are aggressive. They did build unauthorized weapons. They did deceive our inspectors. They did exactly what we would have done in their position, a quiet voice said from the back of the chamber. Arbiter Vexal of the Thornid Collective stepped forward. He was an old being, having served on the council for 200 years. They were told they were inferior. They were told they needed supervision like children. And they responded by proving they were anything but children. They violated council law, Zelthor insisted. What law? Vexal asked. They never agreed to subject species status. They never signed any treaty accepting our authority. We simply declared it and expected them to comply. Can we truly say they violated laws they never consented to follow? The chamber fell silent. It was an uncomfortable question. The council had operated under the assumption of inherent authority for so long that no one questioned it anymore. Young species accepted their classifications because the council was old and powerful. But humanity had challenged that basic assumption. Admiral Thexnor of the Vrexian hegemony requested permission to speak. He commanded the largest military fleet in council space. I have reviewed the tactical data on human capabilities. The ships they revealed are designed for close combat and aggressive maneuvers. Their weapons target specific weaknesses in our shield technology that we didn't know existed. If we engage them militarily, I estimate 30% casualties before we achieve victory. Several delegates made sounds of disbelief. 30% against one species? Someone asked. That's impossible. I wish it were, Admiral Thexnor replied. But humans fight differently than we do. They take risks we consider suicidal. They attack when we would defend. They use aggression where we use caution. And they have trained specifically to counter our expected tactics. Would we win eventually? Yes. Would it cost us dearly? Also yes. Then we use economic pressure, another delegate suggested. Cut them off from galactic trade. Restrict their access to resources. Eventually, they will have to negotiate. Chief Analyst Moore Wen of the Cascade Collective projected data into the center of the chamber. I have studied human history extensively. Economic sanctions will not work the way you expect. Humans have a pattern they call siege mentality. When cut off from outside resources, they become more determined, not less. They innovate faster under pressure. They unite against common enemies. Sanctions might actually make them stronger. That's ridiculous, Kelvan said. No species becomes stronger when isolated. Humans do, Morwen insisted. Look at their history. When their nations were blockaded, they developed new technologies to break the blockade. When resources were scarce, they found alternatives. When faced with extinction events, they adapted and survived. Isolation is not a weakness for this species. It's a challenge they overcome. Vexal spoke again. We need to examine how we reached this point. 6 months ago, Humanity came to us seeking partnership. They were honest about their history. They shared their culture. They hoped for cooperation. What did we do? We judged them inferior and tried to control them. Because they are dangerous, Zelthor said firmly. Their history shows constant warfare. Their emotional responses are unpredictable. Their technological development is focused on weapons. Their history shows survival, Vexal corrected. They come from a death world where everything tried to kill them. They developed weapons because they had to. They learned warfare because their environment demanded it. And they survived because they refused to give up. We looked at all of that and called it dangerous. They looked at our judgment and called it arrogant. Senior diplomat Lorne from the Aqualis species added her voice. I have traded with humans during the past 6 months. They are honest in their dealings. They honor their agreements. They are curious and eager to learn. These are not the behaviors of a species that wants war. They want respect. Then why build 60 warships in secret? Kelvan demanded. Because we told them they couldn't, Lorne replied simply. We said they could only have 12 ships under our supervision. So they built 60 more without our supervision. They weren't preparing to attack anyone. They were preparing to defend themselves against us. Admiral Thexnor brought up another concern. There's something else. Human tactics are spreading. The Kreenar have signed a defense pact with Earth. They are adopting human combat training. The Silicates are sharing technology with human scientists. If we don't act soon, humanity will have allies. Maybe they should have allies, Vexal said. Maybe the problem is that we created a system where only old species have full rights and young species must prove themselves worthy. Humanity has shown clearly that this system doesn't work for everyone. It has worked for 3,000 years, Zelthor argued. It has worked for species willing to accept it, Vexal countered. What happens when we encounter more species like humanity? Species that refuse to bow? Do we fight each one? Do we make enemies of every species that values independence over hierarchy? The debate continued for hours. Gradually, a picture emerged that made many council members uncomfortable. They had created this problem through their own assumptions. They had looked at humanity's strengths and called them weaknesses. They had offered control when humans wanted partnership. They had tried to impose order on a species whose entire nature was based on resisting imposed order. Inspector Vornax spoke publicly for the first time since the revelation of his failure. I take responsibility for not detecting the unauthorized construction, but in my defense, I was looking for violations based on how council species would violate restrictions. Humans did it completely differently. They thought like humans, not like us. That should have been obvious, but we missed it. Because we assumed they would act like other young species, Morwen said. We evaluated them against a standard designed for species that evolved differently. Humans evolved through constant conflict. Competition and aggression are woven into their nature. Trying to suppress that is like trying to make a predator species eat plants. It goes against everything they are. Arbiter Kelvan finally stood again. His metallic skin had lost some of its dark coloring. I recommended subject species classification because I saw danger in humanity's nature. But perhaps I saw danger because I didn't understand it. A knife is dangerous to someone who doesn't know how to handle it, but in skilled hands, it's a useful tool. Maybe humanity is the same. Dangerous if treated as an enemy. Useful if treated as an ally. So what do we do? Zelthor asked. We cannot simply reverse our decision. That shows weakness. Other species will think they can challenge us too. Maybe they should be able to challenge us, Vexal said. Maybe the Council has grown too comfortable with unquestioned authority. Maybe humanity is showing us that our system needs change. A vote was called. Should the Council pursue military action against humanity? The result shocked everyone. Only 37% voted yes. The majority voted against war. Another vote was called. Should the Council negotiate with humanity for a compromise solution? 61% voted yes. A third vote was called. Should the Council consider reversing the subject species classification entirely and offering humanity full membership? This one was closer, but still passed with 58% approval. Zelthor looked around the chamber. His colors showed resignation mixed with something that might have been respect. It appears the Council has decided we will send a delegation to Earth to negotiate full membership terms. What about the unauthorized ships? Someone asked. What about the deception? What about it? Vexall replied. We tried to restrict them illegally. They built the ships anyway. From a certain perspective, they showed remarkable restraint. They could have attacked us when we tried to impose restrictions. Instead, they built defenses and then told us no with words instead of weapons. Admiral Thexnor added, and from a military perspective, those 60 ships and the humans willing to crew them might be valuable allies someday. The galaxy is big. Threats exist beyond Council space. Having warriors who fight like humans might prove useful. The decision was made. The Galactic Council would extend an offer of full membership to humanity. No restrictions beyond those that applied to all members. No oversight beyond normal diplomatic relations. Full rights to expand, trade, and develop as they saw fit. But the offer came with an understanding. Humanity had won through defiance, not through compliance. They had forced the Council to back down through demonstrated capability and willingness to fight. Every species in the galaxy would know that the Council had blinked first. Some saw this as weakness, others saw it as wisdom. But everyone understood that the galaxy had changed. The Council's authority was no longer absolute. And humanity had proven that a young species with determination could challenge beings who had ruled for thousands of years. In the Sol system, humanity waited for the Council's response. They were prepared for war. They hoped for peace. And they were confident that either way, they would remain free. The Galactic Council had tried to make them subjects. They had failed. Now they would have to try something they had not done in a very long time. They would have to treat humanity as equals. 3 months after humanity's rejection of subject species status, President Karen Foster received a formal communication from the Galactic Council. They requested a meeting to discuss new terms for Earth's membership. The tone was different this time, not commanding, but requesting, not declaring, but negotiating. Karen read through the proposal carefully. Her advisors gathered around the conference table in the secure room beneath the presidential complex. Admiral Jake Morrison had been promoted after humanity's stand and now commanded the growing human fleet. Ambassador Linda Hayes had returned from the Council station. General Marcus Webb attended via secure video link from the training grounds beyond Pluto. They're offering full membership, Karen said. No restrictions beyond what applies to all Council species, no oversight, no mandatory tracking devices, full rights to expand, trade, and develop our military as we see fit. What's the catch? Jake asked suspiciously. No catch that I can see, Linda replied. I've reviewed the legal language. It's the same membership terms they extend to all full member species. They're treating us as equals. Because we forced them to, Marcus said from his screen. They tried the easy way and it didn't work, so now they're trying the smart way. Karen nodded. The question is whether we accept. Some people back home are angry. They want the Council to apologize. They want punishment for the insult of being called subjects. And some people understand that we won, Jake said. We told them no. We backed it up with ships and weapons and willingness to fight, and they backed down. That's victory. Taking it gracefully is smart politics. Chief Scientist Brian Kelly, who had developed the weapons that made victory possible, spoke carefully. From a strategic view, we want to be part of the galactic community. We want access to their knowledge and their trade. We want allies when threats emerge. Fighting a forever war to prove a point doesn't serve any of those goals. Karen looked at each of them. So we accept? We accept, Linda confirmed. But we make it clear that this is how things will be from now on. We're partners, not subjects. We cooperate because we choose to, not because we have to. And if they ever try to impose authority over us again, we'll respond the same way. The meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks later. This time, it was held in neutral territory, a space station maintained by the Cascade Collective. The Council sent their delegation. Earth sent theirs. And thousands of species watched to see how this would resolve. High Arbiter Zelthor opened the proceedings. His crystalline form showed colors of respect rather than authority. President Foster. The Galactic Council has reviewed its earlier decision regarding humanity's status. We acknowledge that our classification was based on incomplete understanding. We offer full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities that such membership entails. Karen stood to respond. Earth accepts the Council's offer of full membership. We look forward to working with all species as equal partners in exploring the galaxy and maintaining peace. It could have ended there. A simple exchange. Error acknowledged, new terms accepted, everyone moves forward. But Karen continued speaking. However, Earth also wants the Council and all species to understand something clearly. We were judged and found wanting for being exactly what we are. We are aggressive because our world made us that way. We are emotional because our bonds keep us strong. We develop weapons because we know the universe is dangerous. None of that will change. She paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. If you expect humans to become more like you, to calm down and become less passionate and less dangerous, you will be disappointed. We are what we are. We survived everything our world threw at us by being this way. We won't change just to make you more comfortable. Arbiter Vexal stood. He had become humanity's strongest advocate within the Council. Humanity. We do not expect you to change. We made an error in trying to control what we should have respected. Your nature is different from ours. That difference can be a strength if we embrace it rather than fear it. Karen smiled slightly. Then we understand each other. Humanity offers cooperation, partnership, and loyalty to allies. But we will never again accept anyone claiming authority over us. We govern ourselves, we make our own decisions, and we defend our own interests. If the Council can accept that, we can work together. If not, we will go our separate ways. The Council accepts these terms, Zelthor said. Welcome to full membership, humanity. The ceremony that followed was formal but brief. Documents were signed. Oaths were exchanged. Earth's representative seat in the Council chamber was officially recognized. Linda Hayes would continue as Earth's ambassador, now with full voting rights and privileges. But the real impact came in the weeks and months that followed. Humanity did not slow down their expansion. They established colonies on 18 more worlds. They built trade relationships with dozens of species. Their exploration vessels pushed into regions of space that the Council had not fully mapped, and they attracted allies. The Kreenar Defense Pact grew stronger, with joint military exercises that combined human aggression with Kreenar strategic thinking. The Silicates shared crystalline technology in exchange for human computer advances. Even some Council species began forming closer relationships with Earth, drawn by human innovation and their refreshing directness. Admiral Jake Morrison found himself commanding not just human ships, but integrated fleets with allied species. He trained their officers in human tactics. They taught him their techniques. The result was a new style of military operation that combined the best of both approaches. "Your pilots are insane," a Kreenar commander told him after a joint training exercise. "Thank you," Jake replied with a grin. "That's exactly what we're going for." On Earth, people celebrated their victory over the Council, but President Karen Foster made sure they understood what had really happened. We didn't beat the Council through force. We beat them by refusing to be anything other than what we are. We showed them that trying to control us was more trouble than working with us. That's not a military victory. That's a cultural one." She was right. Humanity had changed the galaxy not through conquest, but through demonstration. They had shown that young species could stand up to ancient authority. They had proven that aggression and emotion were not weaknesses, but different kinds of strength. They had forced the Council to question assumptions they had held for thousands of years. The Council itself began to change. Other young species took note of what humanity had done. Some began pushing back against their own restrictions. The Council, having learned from their mistake with humans, began offering more flexibility. The rigid hierarchy that had existed for so long started to become more fluid. Arbiter Vexal wrote a report that was distributed to all Council members. In it, he argued that humanity's defiance had been good for the Council. "We had grown stagnant," he wrote. "We assumed our way was the only way. We forgot that diversity includes diversity of nature and culture. Humanity reminded us that respect must be earned, not demanded. They made us better by forcing us to question ourselves." Not everyone agreed. Some Council members remained angry about humanity's defiance. Some worried that the Council's authority had been permanently weakened. But the majority recognized that the galaxy had become more interesting and more dynamic with humanity in it. 5 years later, when a threat emerged from beyond Council space, it was human ships that formed the front line of defense. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the combined fleet that met the invasion. His tactics, considered crazy by traditional Council standards, defeated an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. When asked how he developed the winning strategy, Jake said simply, "We fought the way humans fight, fast, aggressive, and willing to take risks. The enemy expected us to be cautious like the Council. We weren't." That's what won the battle. The victory earned humanity more respect than any diplomatic effort could have. They had not just demanded to be treated as equals. They had proven they deserved it through action. Ambassador Linda Hayes gave a speech at the Council chamber on the anniversary of Earth's full membership. 5 years ago, humanity stood in this chamber and said no to being subjects. Some of you thought we were arrogant. Some thought we were dangerous. Some thought we would fail and come crawling back for acceptance. She looked around at the assembled species. We are arrogant. We are dangerous. But we didn't fail. We thrived. And we did it by being exactly what we are. Humanity doesn't apologize for our nature. We embrace it. We use it. And we offer it in service of the greater good when that service is asked for, not demanded. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Arbiter Vexal began what passed for applause in his species. Others joined in. Not everyone, but enough to show that humanity had truly earned its place. Back on Earth, in a small ceremony that few outside the military attended, Captain Peter Collins received a commendation for his role in developing the deception that had fooled the Council inspectors. He had designed the civilian shipyards that built warships. He had hidden construction from sensors that should have detected it. He had proven that human creativity could overcome superior technology. "You know what the best part was?" Peter said to his friends after the ceremony. "They were so sure they were smarter than us, so confident in their technology and their experience. They never considered that we might just think differently than they expected." Commander Lisa Warren, who had overseen the construction of the original 60 warships, smiled. "That's the human advantage. We don't have thousands of years of tradition telling us how things should be done. We just figure out what works and do it. The Council had forgotten how to do that." The story of how humanity refused to bow became famous across the galaxy. Young species studied it. Military academies analyzed it. Diplomats debated its implications. And the Galactic Council learned a lesson that would serve them well in the years to come. Power without wisdom creates enemies. Authority without respect creates resistance. and trying to control beings who value freedom above all else is a losing battle. Humanity had been declared subjects by the Galactic Council. The Council regretted it immediately, though it took them 6 months to admit it. But in the end, both humanity and the Council were better for the conflict. Humans gained respect and equality in the galactic community. The Council gained flexibility and renewed purpose. And the galaxy gained warriors who fought like humans, allies who valued freedom, and partners who would stand against any threat. The lesson was clear to everyone watching. Do not try to chain those who are meant to be free. Do not judge others by standards they never agreed to follow. And most importantly, do not underestimate a young species just because they are young. Humanity had proven that age and technology were not the only measures of strength. Will, determination, and refusal to accept limitations could be just as powerful. The galaxy would never forget what happened when the Council tried to make humans subjects. And humanity would never forget that they earned their place not through compliance, but through standing firm and saying one simple word that changed everything. No.